Bangladesh's Prime Minister faces calls to resign. Opposition supporters demand a caretaker government oversees elections at the end of next year. What's triggered these protests? And is a political rivalry stretching back decades eroding democratic freedoms? This is Inside Story. Hello there and welcome to the programme. I'm Laura Kyle. The main opposition party in Bangladesh has been holding anti-government protests for months. Witnesses say up to 100,000 people turned up to the latest BNP rally in the capital, Dhaka, on Saturday. A poor economy, rising food and fuel prices and power cuts appear to have galvanised long-standing anger at the Prime Minister. The protesters want Sheikh Hasina to step down and to make way for a caretaker government ahead of elections due next year. All 7 MPs from the BNP have resigned. Police stormed the BNP's headquarters earlier this week. At least one person was killed and hundreds of opposition activists were arrested. We'll bring in our guests in just a moment. First, this report from Tanvir Chowdhury in Dhaka.
During the past few months, the government has clamped down on the opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party. Several people have been shot dead by police, hundreds injured, and thousands have been arrested at rallies across the country. But it didn't stop tens of thousands of opposition supporters from gathering in Dhaka on Saturday.
People don't have any security here. They don't have the right to vote, and they're scared to venture outdoors because of repression. We demand the autocratic government resign immediately.
We want this government to resign and release former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia. We want real democracy.
On Wednesday, shortly after an interview with Al Jazeera, the party's leader, Fakhrul Islam, was arrested along with 500 supporters.
Bangladesh, unfortunately, is facing one of the most severe political crisis now because the people of this country are being deprived of their voting rights. Democracy is totally absent now in Bangladesh. Unfortunately, the whole scenario is that just an authoritarian government is ruling this country.
The UN and the US have condemned the violence and called for an investigation, while 12 advocacy groups and rights watchdogs have issued a joint statement expressing concerns about gross human rights violations. In a statement, Amnesty International has accused the government of having, quote, very little regard for human life, saying its action send a chilling message to those who dare exercise their human rights. For its part, the government accuses the opposition of trying to destabilize the country. It says protesters are gathering illegally.
Under no circumstances should there be any disturbance on the roads. People don't want it, nor do we want any unruly incidents by blocking roads.
It has also rejected demands for an election-time caretaker government.
Security is heavily beefed up all across the capital city, Dhaka. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the main opposition party's headquarters, is totally cordoned off by police. No one is allowed in the perimeter.
As the economy spirals and the cost of living soars, Bangladesh now faces the additional challenge of growing calls for regime change ahead of the next general elections. Tanvir Chowdhury, Al Jazeera, Dhaka.
So how did we get here? Well, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has had a long rivalry with BNP leader and former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, dating back to the 1990s. In 2018, Zia was jailed in a corruption case her supporters say was politically motivated. Hasina has headed the Awami League party that's been in power since 2009. A caretaker government act introduced in the 90s to oversee national elections was nullified under her rule. And there have been 2 national elections under Hasina marred by opposition boycotts and allegations of fraud. Well, let's bring in our guests now. And in Dhaka, we have Ramin Farhana. She's one of the 7 BNP members of Parliament who resigned on Saturday. Also in Dhaka, Tanvir Shakil Joy, Member of Parliament for the governing Awami League Party. And in the town of Normal in Illinois, Ali Riaz, president of the American Institute of Bangladesh Studies at the Illinois State University. A very warm welcome to all of you. Ramin, let's start with you. Why have you and all 6 other BNP members of Parliament quit?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me. This government is not elected. In 2018, this election is called midnight election because it's created history, in fact, because no other country in the world has this sort of election. So we 7 members, we were in the parliament with the decision of our party. And our party made this decision because we tried to use as much as we can the platform of Parliament, and we tried our level best, but unfortunately we were not given proper time. Our mic has been stopped by the speaker, and this is the time we believe that this decision resonates with the people of Bangladesh. The people of Bangladesh expected us to step down from the Parliament, and we did so.
You say that the elections in 2018 were not valid. So in the last 4 years, what efforts have you been making whilst you've been in Parliament? What are the efforts that have failed?
You must know that in last few years, we were under tremendous oppression. Our chairperson is actually in jail for 2.5 years, and now she is house arrest. Our acting chairman is not allowed to come back to Bangladesh. Our secretary general is now in jail. Loads and loads of cases have been filed against our activists and our members and our supporters. So we are going through a very, very tough time. In fact, Bangladesh is going through a very tough time. There is no democracy. There is no freedom of speech. There is no freedom of expression. Digital Security Act is there. So there is fear psychosis everywhere. In last 4.5 years, we tried to, reorganize ourselves. And I think now we are on our feet and we are ready to move now.
OK, we'll come back to that in just a moment. Tanvir Shakil, first of all, let's get your response. The government's response to the quitting of all of the Bangladesh National Party MPs. They feel silenced. What does the government say about that?
Thanks for having me on the show. First of all, my question is that, as they are saying that the government is not legitimate and the parliament is not legitimate, then what they were doing in this parliament for last 4 years? They were attending the parliament session. They took all the benefits as a parliamentarians. And as it was accused that they were not given time, it's actually not true at all, because they were given much more time than government lawmakers at the parliament. And in every bill that was passed in the parliament, they were given more than equal chances to give their inputs in those laws and bills. And many of their recommendations were included in the laws and bills. So we can say that they had ample chances to say their grievances, to criticize the government, whatever opinions they had. But unfortunately, when DNP was in power from 2001 to 2006, Awami League lawmakers, they did not have many chances in the parliament. I just want to say one incident. In 2004, there was a ghastly grenade attack on now Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And during that time, she nearly escaped. And when she went back to parliament, that time she was the opposition leader. She wanted to discuss this matter. She was not even given the chance to discuss this matter on the parliament.
OK,
so we saw how...
what Rumeen is saying, that she has been there, she says, yes, for the last 4 years, but she has tried to make a difference in the parliament, but those efforts have failed. I think the point that I mostly picked up on is that the BNP leader is in jail, currently now under house arrest. That's Khalida Zia. BNP leaders were arrested ahead of the Saturday protests. There's been 2,000 people, others, arrested ahead of all these protests. Many BNP members have also been abducted, disappeared, not to mention hundreds of extrajudicial killings. There is a silencing of the opposition, is there not?
No, I don't agree with that. First of all, that as I was mentioning, that they were given ample chances and they took all the, all the privileges that parliamentarians got, and they had many chances in the parliament to talk over, but they did not take it, and it was a very unwise decision for them to quit. And as you mentioned that the BNP leaders were jailed, like 3 days before their so-called 10th December procession, they blocked the road in front of their party office. There was a total anarchy on the road, and they actually attacked the police. And that time, for stabilizing the law and order situation, the police arrested some people and they arrested some political leaders. So that was for the sake of keeping the law and order situation. And some of them already got bail and they got released.
Okay.
So some case has been filed, so it will be prosecuted in accordance to the law of the country. So we don't think that there was any unlawful activities. And as you can see that their 10th December rally, the gathering was very peaceful.
It
there
was.
was
Okay.
no
I want to bring in Ali at this point because I want
Yeah.
to get an idea as to, first of all, whether you were surprised by the show of strength amongst the protesters despite efforts to keep them away, but also, as Tanvir Shakil says, how peaceful they ended up being.
I'm not surprised because this 10th December gathering that you are referring to, it has been a build-up to that. And there have been previously 9 such kind of gatherings that BNP organized all around the country. And all of them tend to be very peaceful. Despite the fact that there have been obstruction to joining those, there have been transport strike orchestrated by the government and its supporting transport workers union and owners. But the point is here, Laura, that it is not about BNP versus Awami League question. It is a question with respect to the governance issue. And what we have seen over the last years, the governance crisis has reached to an unprecedented proportion in the sense that you look at the economic crisis. What happened for decades, or at least for a decade, that the government was claiming that they're having an enormous development and the growth is fantastic, yet the economic crisis has, befallen on the common people. So the peaceful part is that the BNP and people of Bangladesh, I would suggest that they would like to express their opinion. Restrictions have been imposed, laws have been imposed. Digital Security Act is a case in point. And also we have seen the extrajudicial killing and enforced disappearance. So it is a question of the democracy, of having the right. Going back to 2018 election, or for that matter, you can go up to 2014 election. There hasn't been any right to exercise their voting rights. What we have seen is that this is the situation. So generally speaking, the question is whether Bangladeshis would have the opportunity to express themselves. Whether in the parliament or not is a secondary question to me at this point. Most importantly, it is the question of expressing, participating in assembly. Right to assembly is a inalienable human rights. That cannot be simply flouted by the executive's decision.
Okay, Ramin, back to you and the quitting of Parliament. If you are not expressing yourself in Parliament, which Tanvir Shakil said you were able to do, how are you going to speak for the BNP?
There are many ways. Parliament is one of the platforms that we were using. We have talk shows in our television channels. We can organize seminars and meetings and public meetings as well. So there are many platforms that can be used. I personally use Facebook, though I have a few cases against me under the Digital Security Act because of my writing in Facebook and my comments and sharing things against government. So yes, we are under tremendous pressure, but we are trying to make the best use of the small space that we have.
Tanvir Shakil, one of the protesters' key demands is a reinstatement of the caretaker government. This was a non-political group that would be in power for around 3 months during the transfer of power during elections. Why did Sheikh Hasina get rid of that? It was a very popular system and it worked well in Bangladesh.
Just answering that, just 2 seconds. First of all, right to assembly is there, and we always respect that. But for the right to assembly does not mean that you can block the road and hamper the general people's life. That's why government requested BNP, and also government party is having all the meetings in a field area, not on the roads. So that should be the norm. And when coming back to the caretaker government thing, the caretaker government was a popular system which was actually enacted by Sheikh Hasina in 1996 when BNP had a very partial election of 15th November. When Awami League is the only party who peacefully actually handed over the power in the history of Bangladesh after 2001 election. But what we saw in 2006, BNP actually, for some, I don't know, for some very weird reason, they increased the age limit of the chief of our court because he was supposed to become the caretaker government, and there the conflict started. And we all know what happened after that. In 2 years, the government Bangladesh had a military rule due to that unrest, and caretaker government became very controversial. And for that reason, the High Court, not Sheikh Hasina, the High Court actually cancelled the caretaker government system, which was upheld by the Apex Court, Supreme Court. And when it came back, and they said that then they sent it back to the parliament. And in the parliament, then upholding the judgment of the High Court and the Supreme Court, the caretaker government was cancelled. And I just want to mention, in 2014 election, before the election, our Honorable Prime Minister called late ex-Prime Minister Khaleda Zia to propose that there is no caretaker government. So why don't we form a election time government comprising of all the members in the parliament, all the parties? And unfortunately, Khaleda Zia actually rejected that offer, and she did not even hit to it. So it was cancelled by the court, and then it was supported by the parliament. And we are, for the first time in the history of Bangladesh, has a new election commission forming law, which was actually proposed by BNP.
We'll come back to that in just a moment. I just want to put this to Ramin, because right now Sheikh Hasina's government is in power. They are under fire for the alleged abuses of power that they are committing at the moment. But if we look back in history, the BNP has its own very checkered history, as Tanvir Shakil has just mentioned. And indeed, it could be said that the BNP, Khaleda Zia, had its own role in this current political crisis by trying to bias the caretaker government in 2006. What's the response of the BNP to that?
My response is very clear. There is a clear difference between Awami League regime and BNP ruling time, because BNP was elected by the people. And since it was elected, it was accountable to the people. Since Awami League is not elected from 2014, it is not accountable to its people, and it is using forces like killing, extrajudicial killing, enforced disappearance, and stuff like that to oppress the opposition and to oppress the voice of people who criticize government and stuff like that. So you just cannot compare the time of BNP with the time of Awami League, because Awami League is not elected by the people, first of all. Secondly, what I want to say is Constitution is not a holy book. It's not Quran or Bible that you can never change. It has already been changed 16 times, and it can be changed for a 17th time as well. So it cannot be a reason that the caretaker government is not in the Constitution, so it can never be implemented. In 90s, there was no caretaker government in the Constitution, but there was doctrine of necessity. And after the fall of Ershad regime, some sort of caretaker government was formed at that time. And we have seen the election of 91, 96, 2001 and 2006 election, the only 4 elections that were accepted by more or less both the parties. So it shows that our political culture is such that we cannot have a fair, free election under a partisan government.
Okay.
And it's very clear from 1973. If we want to go back,
let's stick with going forward. Ali Riaz, do you agree that Bangladesh does need a caretaker government in this very polarized environment?
Absolutely. However you call it, whether you call it caretaker government, election government, what is necessary is a government which would act neutrally. There would not be a partisan bias. And If you look at the 11 elections, only 4 of the elections in Bangladesh, which turned out to be free and fair and acceptable, relatively acceptable to everybody, are those which were being conducted under a neutral caretaker government. The point is, number one, is the mutual distrust between the two political parties, not only two political parties. As a matter of fact, it is not only demand of the BNP. If you look at the other opposition parties, they are demanding the same. They have demanded the same thing in 2014, and as a matter of fact, in 2018. Because of the one is the mutual distrust. Second thing is that what we have seen is the entire administration, including law enforcement agencies, have been pretty much made very much partisan. And other than having an administration that is beyond this political reach, meaning that there is no political bias or political leaning, an election that would not be acceptable. And as a matter of fact, we have seen the lack of participation as well. I mean, if you look back in 2014 election, there hasn't been more than 23-24% participation. And then what happened in 2018? It is reported in international media that the ballot stuffing took place with the support of the administration the night before. All these things actually indicate that there has to be a system where no political parties, I'm not talking about only two political parties, I'm saying no political parties have this undue advantage, and there is a level playing field. What we have seen, the use of the law enforcement agencies against the opposition political parties. And it is not only, again, what we have seen over the last 4 years, if not more, that the opposition political parties had no space. The media had very little, independence to speak out.
Tanvir Shakil, we've had 15 Western embassies release a joint statement. The UN also have been calling for free and fair elections. If you had a caretaker government in place, as the protesters are demanding, would it not legitimise the elections?
No, we don't think so. First of all, that, as it was just being said, that maybe there is distrust between political parties. But if we say that who will become the member of the caretaker government, they are from Bangladesh, right? So they are definitely having political bias to any Awami League or BNP or any other way. And we have seen that, what happens with the caretaker government from 2006 to 2008. We had 2 years of military rules. So we strongly believe that whatever government, whatever is the name, it should have, people representative there, maybe from Awami League, BNP, and all other parties together, and that can be called election time government, as it was proposed by Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in 2014. But we don't think because caretaker government will be the solution, because we never know that caretaker government will bring another military government or military-backed civilian government in Bangladesh. So I think that will not be a solution. And when it was talking about 2014 election, BNP did not participate. You have the democratic right not to participate or not to participate. Just 1 second. But you don't have right to burn down polling agents. You don't burn down living people to foil the election. So I think this is the first time we have a law of the election commission, and election commission is very strong. We are hoping that the election commission will have all the power, all the support.
So you may be hoping that, but the people on the street are not hoping for that. So Ramin, just finally, it does not sound as if the Sheikh Hasina government has heard the demands of the protesters or will act on them. So what will the BNP do next?
We are now trying to strengthen our organization power. We are trying to make allies with other political parties. And at the same time, you can see that people are with us. They are expressing their support. They are coming to our meetings. They are, you can see, if you see the media, you see that they are with us. So hopefully we will overcome this situation.
Okay, well, you say Bangladesh remains a very polarised society, people supporting the BNP, people supporting the Awami League. It does not seem as if the middle shall be met. There we do have to leave the discussion for the moment. Thanks very much to our guests, Ramin Farhana, Tanvir Shakil Joy and Ali Riaz. And thank you too for watching. You can see the programme again anytime by visiting our website. That's aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, do go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Laura Kyle, and the whole team here, it's bye for now.